Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy by TrustArc. Please welcome our hosts, Paul Breitbarth and Kay Royal.
Hey everyone, I'm back. And even though we are in the midst of summer, when we record this episode, privacy news is still popping up as if nobody would take vacation this year. Well, I did. Last year's summer mainly brought us the Schrems II decision, of which we still enjoy the fallout, but this year we already have the largest GDPR fine to date, initial enforcement results from the CCPA, a ramp-up of the Brazilian DPA, and lots of stories about the world turning into one big, large surveillance society. Enough to discuss during this Week in Privacy episode, I would say. My name is Paul Breitbarth.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So our question this week, let's just dive right into it. Paul.
Favorite vacation destination? Oh, no.
You just got back from vacation, and oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. While you were gone, I told my boss I want vacation, and he just kind of quirked an eyebrow at me, and I'm like, so I'm okay to have a vacation as long as I take a computer or a cell phone and I maintain internet access while I'm gone? He's like, I didn't say that. Oh my gosh, there is enough work to be done to not stop. So the unexpected question really is, you want a new blank.
House.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Are you on the active hunt for one?
Well, there is a new build project here in The Hague, which I've set my eyes to.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that. How's that going?
Well, still waiting for the prices to be listed, so I still don't know if I can afford it. But yeah, I mean, I would really like a new build house for a change. I'm living in an old house now, which is nice, and it's a good house. It's a good place.
And it's very European.
It's very European, but I would like to build the house from scratch, or the apartment from scratch, and do the full layout myself and pick my own floor, pick my own kitchen, and do everything. So
just do it right. Tim and I have built 2 houses together. I was thinking, is it only 2? 2. And the first one, we made all the wrong choices. Just don't do that. And on the second one, we made all the right choices. And that's the house that we lived in before we moved to Texas. And when we came back, we actually looked to see if it was for sale or if we could buy it. But we didn't want to go that far south in Chandler. And so for myself, I want a new blank. I want a new cosplay character to play. That would be really cool.
Okay.
I don't know why. I'm working on costumes. We're still hoping Comic-Con's going to happen here in Phoenix in January with all the new Delta variants and everything. There's no idea. So I'll just put in here that I already got me some new boots, and they're over-the-knee, sparkly pink Steve Madden stiletto boots that I was like, should I? I should. I did. And they're amazing. And I have nowhere to wear them, but they're awesome.
So you'll be wearing them to the next IAPP conference for our fans to recognize you.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, I'm sure they go with anything. And at this point, people pretty much expect anything out of me, so.
I mean, you are the pink part of our logo, so you can wear pink boots.
That's right. The pink part. As if that surprises anyone that I'm the pink part. Nope. So we don't actually have a lot to talk about privacy law movements. There's still privacy law movements here in the U.S. We gave a great update on U.S. privacy law 2 weeks ago. For TrustArc, we'll make sure that we put that link in here for you and keep you apprised. We give you the rundowns on the new laws in the blogs. especially Colorado. If you're looking at Colorado, we have a 4-part session on that. We don't have a lot of new happening in Europe. I mean, not that I've heard of anything.
Well, no, everybody's on vacation. It's summer recess in all parliaments, so legislative sessions are put on hold for now.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean nothing is happening in Europe. I mean,
we still have things happening, just not in the law. Not like new law, but we have lots of things happening. So let's talk about the first one. You had one teed up that was fantastic.
well, I think the newest one is hot off the press this morning. We are recording August 10, which is that Max Schrems has hit again. And time we saw 422 complaints filed
Oh, wow.
with multiple data protection authorities across Europe, about half of them with the Austrian DPA, against cookie banners that are non-compliant. And we discussed those cookie banners
Shocking!
complaints. Yeah, I know. We discussed those cookie banners before.
We have a wonderful guide for cookie banners that include the common complaints. You analyze these down to the last detail. The common complaints about cookies from the CNIL and from NOIB, and most of what those entail, which, by the way, we can talk about these on here. Because as a privacy-enhancing technology, do we qualify as that when it comes to Cookie Consent Manager? Jeff Jockish, I'm talking to you. But we are a tool.
True.
And just like Microsoft Word does not stop people from putting porn pictures in PowerPoint because they're just a tool, we don't stop our customers from implementing cookie consent banners or anything else in the way that they wish to do so, although, of course, we do provide guidance. And so in light of these complaints, we actually did provide guidance out to our customers going, okay, here's the major things that CNIL and NOIB, which I was surprised to find out that the name really is NOIB, not none of your business. That is shortened to NOIB. The name is NOIB, a European privacy
Watchdog or something like that.
activist company or whatever. So I'm going to call it NOIB, and it's all lowercase letters, NOYB. And so we gave the most common ones that they talk about, and we can talk about some of those here, including some of the ones we didn't talk about at the end that are mainly decisions that companies need to make about how do they classify cookies and different things like that. But there were 4 main ones, Paul. Do you remember them off the top of your head?
Well, I think one of the most important ones is the possibility to reject cookies at the first layer of a cookie consent banner without being nudged. That's number 2, without being nudged towards giving consent. So you cannot just have a big button say accept all in bright red or bright green, and then a very light gray link saying reject all.
Exactly. You can't nudge. I'm giving air quotes here, people, everyone. You can't nudge people one way or the other. And I hate the ones that they pop up and it's accept all or make cookie choices. And it's like, can't I just reject everything except what's necessary, which is what I see on a bunch of them. That's accept all, make cookie choices, or reject everything except what's necessary. And I actually like that one. But yes, they need to be in the same color. They need to be in the same font. They need to be just as noticeable. They need to be just as prominent. You can't nudge people towards making one choice versus another. It has to be equal.
Correct. So denying consent, rejecting consent in an easy manner. Known also a possibility to withdraw consent, because that is also a requirement under the GDPR. Consent needs to be given in a free and informed way, etc. But also you need to be able to withdraw it in the same easy way as you have been providing it. So that is one of the concerns. And also the use still of legitimate interest is a concern, because legitimate interest is not a legal ground in e-privacy.
No, you hear it from me and Paul at the same time. You cannot claim cookies as a legitimate interest. I'm sorry. It is literally cookie consent. And yeah, the absolutely necessary ones aren't even really legitimate interest. I mean, people can't consent or not consent to absolutely necessary ones, but it's how your platform works. It's how your website works. And I did see someone was either our old friend Ralph or it was Alex or someone in the UK that said there is no such thing as an absolutely necessary consent. So if I called one of your names in vain, I'm sure you'll forgive me or I'll hear about it. But that there is no such thing as an absolutely necessary cookie. But I beg to differ. There is. If you're a platform that someone has to log into an account, if you don't have a cookie to maintain that login across pages, they'd literally have to log in for every click they made.
Yeah, so credentials are first-party cookies that are considered as necessary cookies. The same like keeping your shopping basket if you have a web shop. Those are first-party cookies that are perfectly acceptable, that do not require consent.
Exactly.
But most of the other cookies, and especially everything that is to do with advertising and tracking, does require consent and not legitimate interest. Well, Noip has announced earlier this year that they are scanning 10,000 websites before the end of the year, not just automatically, but also doing manual reviews, and that they will warn companies if they are found to be non-compliant. They have done so before the summer with the first batch of, I believe, 500 websites, and about 2/3 of those websites have made improvements and have made considerable improvements, but have not done everything that Noip had suggested. They claim, or they state in their press release, that some companies are probably reluctant to make changes because their competition is still maintaining certain types of cookies.
Right.
So if they do it, why shouldn't I? Then I have a disadvantage. We don't see a lot of DPA enforcement. That is already changing, by the way. Also before the complaints by Noip, we saw, for example, in France, the first fines coming down and the first official DPA warnings coming down for non-compliant cookie banners. And also because a lot of companies just think, well, we first want to see harmonized interpretation by the DPAs, not just national guidance. The thing is that e-privacy is still a national implementation law because the e-privacy regulation has still not been adopted because the member states and parliament don't agree.
And we don't hear a whole lot of noise about it anymore.
Well, the negotiations have started, so they will pick up speed, hopefully after the summer break. But it will take some time before we see agreement on the e-privacy regulation, if it gets there. So there is still quite some work to be done there as well. But this is a big step because now we have formal complaints. For example, the CNIL has confirmed they have received 22 complaints from Noip that they will review as part of their cookie enforcement effort. And the Austrian DPA received half, as I mentioned. And that is because some websites that are targeted by Noip do not have their EU establishment. And given that all of the team live in Vienna or around Vienna, then the Austrian DPA would be the competent DPA to file a complaint, because that is their local DPA. For others, there is no possibility to file a complaint in anything else than a local language with certain data protection authorities, and that means that the complaint is filed via the Austrian DPA, who will then forward it via the cooperation mechanism to other data protection authorities around the EU.
And they're known to be a strong enforcement agency.
They are, so we'll see what happens here, but probably by the end of the year, we'll see more about cookie banner enforcement. Noip will continue their scans of the 10,000 websites, so we can expect more follow-up information on this story as well. And to every company that has a website with a cookie banner, please do review your settings and make sure that you don't make yourself overly vulnerable, especially if your website is based in Europe or in California. Noip doesn't reach to California, but still, your consent requirements are pretty much aligned with an opt-in by now, given all the guidance from the California AG.
Yeah.
So, make sure that you review your cookie banner settings and make sure that they are compliant.
I think, absolutely. That's our piece of advice here. If you want it, please do go review them. And I also think it's interesting, talking about enforcement action and activity, is the number of privacy jobs that are opening up. And the reason I thought about this is because you mentioned California. So California is currently searching for the executive director for the Consumer Privacy Agency. So all of you...
Nice job, but I guess you need to be an American to do that.
Well, they don't specify that. So come on, Paul, move over here to California. There's a reason people pay a premium to live in California. But it's really interesting. You actually are probably rather qualified in doing so, given that you have experience in government institutions and everything. And for the record, I am not applying for that executive director job. I can be very diplomatic. I just don't think I belong in an executive director of the very first state level privacy agency there is. However, if someone in California disagrees with me that's on the board, give me a holler. Otherwise, we're going to move on and talk about a few other things that are open.
Talk to me more about California, maybe not about vacancies, but
maybe about the lawsuits?
Yeah, maybe about enforcement.
Right. I think this is phenomenal. So the IAPP, and we will give you the link to this, has put out an infographic about the class action lawsuits that are in CCPA, or just lawsuits. Most of them are class action. But there have been more than 140 CCPA-related actions to date. I believe I last counted somewhere around 160, but I think a lot of those were thrown out. And so as of January 1st, 2020, the CCPA provides, and this is the law, a consumer who's non-encrypted, and this is and non-redacted, but I think the law revised it to non-encrypted or non-redacted. Personal information, as defined in CCPA, was subject to a breach as a result of the business's violation of their duty to have reasonable security procedures and practices, have the right to bring a private action. Now, the consumer has to provide a business 30 days written notice, and that basically gives you an opportunity to cure, and it shall only apply to violations of that section I just read, breaches. The other thing it goes on to say that's not included in this little blurb here is that you cannot use the CCPA and any violations of any other provision of the CCPA as the foundation of any other lawsuit. And a lot of lawsuits do that. They say clearly the company was negligent because they haven't done bling, bling, bling. Well, sorry. You're not allowed to do that. And so on the breaches, and they give a bunch, so it does not apply retroactively. We learned that already. And that was earlier this year that we found out the CCPA does not apply retroactively, despite the fact that it has a 1-year look back period when it went into effect. Has to be a consumer, which means has to be a California resident. Now, here the thing is, this next one they have on here is non-encrypted and non-redacted. Now, I'm going to have to go fact check, but I swear that that was clarified to mean non-encrypted or non-redacted, but we'll see. They have to plead facts showing it was the deficient security procedures that caused it. It has to be personal information. The defendant does, if they don't meet the definition of a business, it doesn't qualify. So they can't sue a service provider. They have to sue the business. They have to say that they had duty to protect it. They have to show the unauthorized access and deficient security. They have to give the 30-day pre-suit notice to give opportunity to cure. And there has to be a breach. Basically, it has to be very narrowly defined to a breach, which I think is fascinating the way a lot of these have turned out. And there was a recent United States Supreme Court decision saying that a harm in law does not equal a harm in fact. And so that our case law and our requirements have always been that plaintiffs had to have a harm. Despite the Fifth Circuit's decision, I think under the TCPA, that receiving an undesired or unwarranted text message actually did cause a harm because it would decrease the plaintiff's battery life on their phone. The U.S. Supreme Court, which has nothing to do with both cases, just very interesting on how these two came out at about the same time, says that even though the law provides that the plaintiff is harmed and therefore can bring a suit or they can be penalized, and this was with the FTC, so it wouldn't be bringing a suit by the plaintiff. But even though they could be penalized, they could not be penalized for harming the plaintiffs, even if that was allowed for in law, because harm in law did not equal a harm in fact. So I expect that there's going to be some trickle-down repercussions for that, but that California will very strongly maintain its position that it calls it a harm in law. And so there's still not a harm in fact. So I wonder if California is going to get something, I don't know, established that it's actually a harm in fact, because California's been trying for a long time to allow plaintiffs to seek penalties or something when they've experienced a breach, because you never know when your data's been breached, when you have a harm in fact. It's such a nebulous concept. Being able to track down identity theft to a particular breach, to a particular company at a particular time, when how many breaches do we all have on almost a daily basis, is almost impossible. But that worry you have when you get a letter that, well, I don't know, does anybody open these letters from the breach companies anymore? Saying they have a breach, isn't that a harm? The fact that people don't even want to give their information out, the fact that their trust has been broken.
According to my dictionary, it would be, but maybe the legal dictionary in the US is still a bit different than the Oxford Traditional British English that I use.
There was another part I was going to go to about the breaches, is just who else is in breach fatigue? All of us, right? And one thing I had to point out to some people, and it seems like this has to be pointed out on a fairly regular basis, a lot of people seem to think if they didn't get a letter from a big breach, and there's tons of big breaches, LinkedIn, Yahoo, Marriott, Target, blah, 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 blah. And they say, oh, I didn't get an email or I didn't get a letter from blankety blank company, therefore my information must not have been breached. Okay, false. In the U.S. states, the state data breach notification law, and apologies to all other fantastic law firms out there, my default go-to, including our own Nimity, my default go-to for state data breach notification requirements is Mintz Levin, and I will give you the link to that. I love this. I've been relying on it on years. I love it. Actually, Jeff Jockish was developing his own on state data breaches, and I told him about that one too. So if you go there and you look up state data breach notification laws, almost every single state, once you reach a key number of individuals whose information has been breached, and usually that's around 1,000. Sometimes it's 1,500, sometimes it's 2,000, sometimes it's 500. Then you don't have to give individual notification by mail or by email. You can do substitute notification by making sure that it is published in public mass media, in a media designed or fashioned in a way that should reach all the individuals whose information was breached. So I'm sorry if you learned through the news that Marriott or Yahoo or LinkedIn or Target or any of these others had a breach. Congratulations, you've been notified.
Exactly. So, another big issue this summer is a fine of the small amount of 746 million euro.
I knew you were going to get to that one. Let's take 3 guesses. Okay, we're going to give the audience. Let's give the audience an opportunity. Is it A, Walmart? Because, you know, that's like, what, number 1 on Fortune 50, I think? I don't remember. I'd have to look.
They don't have stores in Europe, I believe.
Ah, there we go. So, darn it. So it can't be. Did anyone else not know that Walmart didn't have stores in Europe?
Never seen them, at least.
Was it Disney? I know there's a Disney presence in Europe, although I haven't been there.
There is. There is. But no, it's not.
Okay, so, or is it, yeah, I've guessed it here, is it the company with a smile?
It is. It is Amazon.
It is. Are they still smiling?
Well, no, they are angry because they say, well, we didn't have a data breach, so why do you fine us?
Oh my gosh, that was so infuriating. Was it not? Their press release was there wasn't any loss of data. There wasn't a data breach. So how could we possibly have violated the GDPR? Did I do that well?
Yeah, I think so. Well, we officially do not know yet what they got the fine for because under Luxembourg law, this is a fine imposed by the Luxembourg DPA, who are the lead authority for Amazon, because Amazon Europe is based in Luxembourg.
There was a little bit.
Under Luxembourg law, the case file needs to remain sealed until the appeal is finalized. And Amazon obviously appealed the fine that they received. But of course, there were some leaks that this fine was imposed. And the French DPA put out a press release saying, hey, we are happy that Luxembourg decided to impose this fine because it was a case that we have forwarded to the Luxembourg DPA following a complaint that we received from an NGO, a civil liberties group called La Quadrature du Net, and also put out a press release. We'll link to that as well. And they said, well, indeed, the Luxembourg DPA finally rendered its opinion on the collective legal action we and 10,000 more people took in May 2018 against Amazon. So this is well over 3 years for this case.
For tracking. That's what it was. It was for tracking individuals without their consent.
Exactly. It is about the targeted advertising system that Amazon forces onto people, not being based on free consent, which is a violation of the GDPR. So the corporation is fined to the tune of 746 million euros, which again translates to 888 million US dollars.
And how much does Amazon make a day?
In any case, this is a serious sanction, and we'll have to wait for the final report to see whether the amount of the fine will be upheld, and also what the reasoning of the DPA is, and also to find out if indeed how they calculated the amount of the fine. But it is a serious amount.
It is a serious amount, and back in 2019, I see where it says that they make 638.1 million per day, 26.6 million per hour. I'm pulling up a 2021 article from CNBC, and let's see, Amazon revenue was 837 million per minute in 2021's first quarter.
Well, then this is a whole of a minute's work. Maybe a minute and a few seconds.
But you're right, it is a significant fine. Losing a minute's worth of revenue does not mean it didn't hurt. And the fact that they're under... Now, does the European regulatory, and please correct me because I really don't know, do they do oversight mechanisms the way we do here? Like you're under 20 years of oversight for having to do certain policies and procedures, or is the fine the only thing they can do?
I haven't seen those kind of 20-year audit requirements before. It is not ruled out under the GDPR. It depends a bit also on the national administrative law requirements and possibilities. But again, since the official sanction report has not been published, we don't know if there are any compliance orders in connection to this fine or if it is just a fine. I would be surprised if it would be just a fine, because that would mean that the wrongs have not been righted, because Amazon's press release does not indicate that they have made any significant changes to their operation.
Or that they plan to. They have tons and tons of privacy jobs open. And it's interesting because it would seem that being in a privacy or cybersecurity position at a company like Amazon would be ultimately fascinating and a huge step in someone's career. And I'm sure it is. But Amazon, you need to take privacy seriously. Facebook, you need to take privacy seriously. Google, you need to take privacy seriously. Do I need to repeat this for every single company on the market? You need to take privacy seriously. Now, you need to take security seriously, too. And I absolutely support security, Paul. You and I have talked about this before. We absolutely support security. They need to go hand in hand. But most of your penalties are going to come because of privacy laws. Most of your enforcement is going to come because of privacy laws. Most of the causes are going to come because someone broke through your security, which you think is world class, and it may be, but it's not infallible. No security is infallible. But you're going to get in trouble when it happens because of your privacy practices. So you need to take it seriously. Companies like ours, like TrustArc, Nimity that we acquired, I really cheered out loud when that happened. I adore Nimity, but we're here to help you. And no, we don't give product pitches, but seems like some of you really need some help. So seems like I need to give you a list of resources of where you can get some serious privacy help. And TrustArc is the only serious privacy company.
Well, at least start listening to the podcast. That might already give you some indications.
Exactly.
Maybe also that you now really need to start caring about compliance in Brazil.
Yeah.
Because as of the 1st of August, you can also be fined in Brazil with fines of up to 50 million reais, or 2% of turnover.
And we know some of those regulators in Brazil, and we know that they're happy to go after the companies who are not following the law.
Exactly. And also in Brazil, earlier this week, the President Bolsonaro, he visited the DPA, and he also signed off on the creation of the Brazilian Data Protection Council,
Nice,
which is the body above
finally.
the Data Protection Authority that is responsible for the broader strategy and for more opinion-making pieces on how to deal with data protection in Brazil.
And that was the last piece we were waiting on, right?
That's the last piece that we were waiting on. So also that is now fully up and running.
You want to move to Brazil, Paul? How's your Portuguese?
It's too warm. My Portuguese is not that good either, but I can learn, but Brazil is too warm for me.
Oh, just like apparently Canada, who had a proposed revision of PIPEDA.
No, we spoke about
going
that law last year with Constantine and Jennifer Stoddart just before Christmas. The episode is still available, but it doesn't seem like the law is going anywhere, and that there will be elections in Canada in the fall and try again afterwards. Which may mean that Canada will lose their adequacy status.
They just might, because apparently Europe is pretty strong about reviewing and revoking adequacy status, which, has become very clear, as we talked about on one of the last podcasts about the UK. I have no idea what kind of provisions they're going to put in place for South Korea, but no doubt that South Korea is going to meet their requirements. I would not want to handle privacy in South Korea. They're pretty darn strong. But are they reviewing the Isle of Man and Jersey? Mm-hmm. See, those are the two that I always bring up because it cracks me up. That the Isle of Man and Jersey have strong privacy protection laws. They have adequacy and currency. And it's the Isle of Man and Jersey. Whoever thinks of those two?
Well, they are important between the UK and Europe.
I need to go vacation.
Because they have a lot of money. There is a lot of banks there, and there used to be a banking secret, so there's lots of financial data, which can be of interest to authorities and others. So, yeah, they are still relevant.
Is this like people that want to hide their money get the Swiss bank accounts?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that anymore with all the banking treaties, but
I had a few $million that I wanted to go hide somewhere.
Still go with the Bahamas. These are the European equivalents, or at least they were at some point, of the Bahamas.
I wish I had a few million I wanted to hide somewhere, but it's hidden somewhere so well I have no idea where it is. So it's a Bitcoin. I lost my Bitcoin password. Okay, there were a few other things that we had. We don't have time to talk about a lot of them yet. One of them we're just going to speak about briefly. The Future of Privacy Forum, FPF, put out a fantastic paper about a topic that we talked about on a podcast not too long ago, health law data. Oh no, we did a webinar on it with Chris from Merck, about how health law data cannot be shared in and out of Europe or even among Europe in many, and what kind of impact that is having on research activities. They didn't mention Helsinki, that you shouldn't be repeating experiments because data should be shared, but it leads to a topic that I'm very passionate about is, okay, well, if you did want to share health data, how would you write that informed consent? Because how do you write an informed consent that lasts forever? We don't know what use we'll have for the data, but we want to keep this data. And most research subjects that I've talked to, that you read about, they would love their data to be kept forever and to be used forever for research to help cure diseases because it's anonymized. And they would love the data to be there as long as humanly and technologically, which that would be forever, possible if it's going to help cure diseases and help people in the future. But how do you actually write an informed consent for that, especially if you add AI into the mix? And yet you need it.
I don't know.
Informed consents are very,
I don't
very
know.
important, as you and I were just talking about yesterday.
Yeah, and then there are of course the consents under the health laws, but also the consent under data protection laws, which are also not fully aligned.
Yeah.
So there is some work to be done to make health research and research in general more easy across the world.
And I do know that here at TrustArc, we have started with our research division, we have started compiling more resources for health research, such as the age of consent and different things like this. So if you are looking and you're in the health research field and you have curiosity, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our research is beyond compare. Apparently our user interface could be better, but we're getting better there. But the research itself is just out of this world. Nymity was the absolute one tool that when I was a privacy officer or privacy counsel prior to coming to TrustArc at multiple companies, it was the one I wanted. Because you can't, it's simply amazing. And I would say, and that's not a product placement because that's not about TrustArc, but it is. You know, apparently people, if y'all haven't figured it out yet, I had a little bit extra sugar in my coffee this morning.
Yeah, maybe a bit too much. Maybe dial it down for the next episode.
You know what?
The one thing I still want to raise before we have to wrap up is well, it is not even a function creep anymore. It is just
you took
a
deep breath on that one.
Yeah, it is just plain out surveillance society going on right now. I mean, we had an NBC story earlier this week on big tech call center workers that need to approve, under duress, home surveillance. So they need to put a camera in their workplace while working from home, which for many people is their bedroom, which is a concern.
And their families are at home with their children.
One of the big phone companies announcing that they will start scanning your photos to detect if there is anything onto. We had the big stories 2 weeks ago about Pegasus spyware that can just be installed on all kinds of phones and keep track of everything you do. We have video doorbells that are ubiquitous nowadays that keep track of everything that is happening in the street, and you never know when they are or are not recording. Voice or images. And now we have the police here in the Netherlands using cameras that are used for automated number plate recognition. So they're scanning the license plate.
Oh, Ralph, hello.
And they are now also scanning faces for facial recognition without a legal basis to do so.
Facial recognition technology. Yeah, that's one we need to talk about.
Yeah, so maybe we'll follow up on this one because I don't have the time to do a full rant here.
But this is the world that we're moving into. A lot of companies have completely, permanently closed their physical locations. And there are companies who have publicly come out and stated that their employees have the ability to work from home permanently now. Yet then we also have companies that are saying that they're tracking you. If you're not in the office every day for a certain number of consecutive days, then you're on warning and you can be terminated. This is a weird world we're walking into.
It is, and as Jeroen Terstegen, who is the IAPP country leader here in the Netherlands, mentioned in response to the phone scanning, the phone image scanning story, in principle, this is privatization of surveillance that is happening, and companies can do anything that is not explicitly forbidden, whereas governments can do only things as long as it is explicitly allowed. Well, of course, here in the Netherlands, then with the police story, they are also doing things that are not explicitly allowed, and instead of apologizing, they're now saying, oh no, but we need a legislative change because this is so important. That's how they got the ANPR cameras in the first place, because in the past they were not even allowed to use those, and they were using them as well. So this is function creep. This is a very big function creep.
Yeah.
This is privatization of surveillance, and I'm not comfortable with it.
No.
But we'll talk about that in
not.
a future episode.
Surveillance is one of your areas of passion. Government surveillance usually, but this is privatization of surveillance. I have a feeling your passion is growing and expanding to encompass.
Well, I'm not sure it's my passion anymore, but it's certainly my concern.
It's the pee under the mattresses that you can't sleep on, right?
Exactly. So we'll get back to that in a future episode, promise.
All right, bring us to a close, my
For
friend.
now, thank you for listening to this episode of Serious Privacy. And if you like our episodes, please do tell your friends and colleagues about us and rate and review our episodes in your favorite podcast app or on your favorite podcast platform. Should you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to us via seriousprivacy@trustarc.com, via our LinkedIn page, or via Twitter at @podcastprivacy. You will find Kay on Twitter as Heart of Privacy and myself as EuroPaulB. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye, y'all. And I promise, less sugar next time.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No, that's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on Nimity research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.